Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Deep Dive, Emerald City Hockey Seattle Kraken podcast. RJ, we've been back at KCI watching Seattle Kraken hockey take place. It's wild.
I know, it's been so long. I can't believe it, but it's so nice to be back. So nice to see you on a more regular basis, Dylan, see everyone in the media and see the players out on the ice. It finally feels like hockey is back. It really doesn't until you actually get there and are right there next to the ice watching the players.
Yeah, until you're sitting there on the bleachers at KCI, going on to hour 4 of that, and your back really starts just going like, okay, that's
My
when you know
back was
hockey season's back.
Yeah, my back was hurting during that prospects game last night. I can't imagine yours, but way to hang in there.
Yeah. But
We're the ones who really go through the actual punishment. So much just talk about the players and all they go through. No, it's us.
No, it's too early in the season for the players to have punishment, wear and tear on their bodies. Come on, they've barely done anything. That comes later. This is our time to complain. Yeah, no, but it's been fantastic. Yeah, going back to KCI, seeing everybody, seeing the staff at KCI, right? Don't get to see them as much during the off season, so it's great to see all of them and just say hi and hear about everybody's off seasons, both with them and then everybody else in the media corps. It's just nice, and yeah, it brings all the good like feelings back, right? Because especially like these last 2 seasons, right? Season ends kind of on a down note, right? There's not a ton to be excited about. Especially this year, wasn't a lot of action in free agency for the team. Wasn't too much to talk about. So coming in, rookie camp starting up, all the positive, hopeful storylines and everything, like it's just reinvigorating for Kraken and for the hockey season in general. It's just a lot of fun. So really happy about that. As I just said, right, rookie camp has started, so that's what we're going to be talking about today is kind of our thoughts from rookie camp and the prospect games that were played this past weekend. So we'll kind of go through potentially the whole roster actually and just kind of say our thoughts on how everybody has been performing. But of course, first we got to thank our wonderful sponsor, the law offices of Rico Tessendorf, for sponsoring the podcast. And you and I actually had a conversation with Rico this past week, RJ, where Rico is staying on board for the next season. We're super happy to have him around. I know everybody else will, because it means another full year of the wonderful ad reads, of which he complimented us on. Did say some people reached out to him. Unfortunately, not for the area of law that he covers. So I will take this moment just to remind everybody his personal injury. So if, automobile accident, workplace accident, dog bites you, something like that, these are the areas that Rico can help you out with. He'll deal with the insurance companies. Let him have the headaches from the insurance companies, which every time we talk to him, it sure sounds like that is the case. But let him handle that and help you out as you go through everything there. Acme Anvil falls on you, Wile E. Coyote style. Those are the kinds of things that Rico can help with.
Yeah, deep pockets for Acme, by the way, too. If that specific thing happens to you, definitely call Rico. But great to have him on board for another year. I know he really believes in what we're doing and is thrilled to be part of the ECH community for yet another season. So let's go. Another year with Rico.
Definitely. And while we hope none of you ever need his services, the odds say that at some point someone out there will be involved in an accident, whether on the road, at work, or anywhere in between. And when you are, we hope you call Rico at 425-778-9800 or visit his website, ricotessendor.com, to schedule a free consultation. He's won millions of dollars for his clients and helped thousands of people in the greater Seattle area. And as a fellow member of the ECH community, we know he'll help you too. And then one more thing before we get started here, RJ, and that is our Patreon schedule for this month.
That's right. So Patreon for September, and I'm so excited because we get back to watching an actual Kraken game, a live Kraken game for the ECH live commentary. And so that's what's going to kick off the Patreon schedule for this month. Our live commentary is going to be for the Kraken's preseason game at Calgary. So against the Calgary Flames, that's September 23rd, 6 p.m. puck drop for that one. Cannot wait to get back and watch a Kraken game with all of you, an actual live one. It was really fun last month rewatching the first ever game in franchise history, but I know seeing something where we don't know the final result is going to be really fun. So looking forward to that. Then next 2 days later is the Armchair GM stream. So that is September 25th. We'll probably get to cover some of the roster cuts there. I'm going to go over some of the new changes in the CBA, which will actually be affecting the Kraken this season. So with the newer rollout of some of those rule changes, we'll get to see how that affects Jason Bottrell and the job that he does. And then Dylan, your prospect chat is September 30th. And I know there's going to be plenty of new stuff, new information to talk about these prospects, some of which we'll get today, but you're going to be able to go into much further depth about it on the prospect chat.
That's right. I have video recordings of the prospect games, and then we'll also have some stuff from the preseason games. And that's why I kind of scheduled it later in the month, is to get some of those preseason games out of the way, see how the younger guys do in those. And we'll really be able to dive deep into everybody's games and how they're performing a little bit more than what we'll be able to do today on the pod. That being said, lots of good stuff to talk about here. But yeah, looking forward to a full month of kind of getting back to it with like the full slate of Patreon content again without it being August. What are we talking about?
Exactly. And so a lot more to talk about, including on the Red Glare podcast, which of course we have every week, talking about league-wide topics and issues. And I know we're doing our division preview for the other three divisions besides the Pacific. So that's been fun. We covered the Central, and then we've got the two Eastern Conference divisions coming up the next couple weeks. So looking forward to that as well. And all that is on patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey. Really helps support us too. And as the hockey season's ramping up, it's just great to see more people in the community. I know we got several people joining just the last couple days too. So nice to see all those new names.
Yeah, definitely. So looking forward to all of that. But now we can shift gear, RJ, and talk about rookie camp. And I will just say, fun rookie camp. Everybody seemed like they were having a good time, just positive vibes all around. And that's what you want from something like this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's fun to see all the young players every year because for them, I mean, this is still has some novelty to it. Not that it's not fun to see the pros coming back, but it really is. They've done this before. They're seasoned veterans. It is their job. There's professionalism about it. Versus a lot of the younger players, sometimes it's their first time really in a Kraken sweater or having the chance to do something like this, and there's a lot of joy on all their faces because this is all kind of new to them.
Yeah, and it's a time for them to all see each other again, right? I always get the vibe, and maybe I should just straight up ask one of them this, but I always get the vibe that when you're drafted by an NHL organization, right, you have this bond with all the other prospects that they have, and you do things like, the July, post-draft rookie camp, you do this, right? And they get really close. They're playing together. You're battling with each other. You're going through this process. You're all staying in the same block of hotel rooms, all that kind of stuff. And then you go out and then you have to play against these guys potentially, right? If you're going back to junior, go back to college, whatever, you're playing against these players, and they're on different teams. And I always got the vibe that a lot of bonds are formed during this time, during rookie camp, the guys that carry over into training camp. But then for the guys who have to go back to junior, you just don't really then see these guys again for a while. So especially for the junior guys, it always feels like a nice little reunion of them all being excited to see each other again and kind of reform those relationships. So I always like seeing that aspect of it all. We can go, I think we're just going to go position groups for sure, potentially just player by player, and we can kind of talk about how they performed at camp, how they performed in the two prospect showcases against the Canucks, which, by the way, I loved this format, RJ, of just play the same team back-to-back nights, and especially hosting them close to Seattle. That I definitely like. Do that again.
Yeah, definitely. That was nice. And yeah, better than going up to Vancouver, I think, and having to make a little road trip out of it. Something that's easy for us to get to. I know you were able to go to both of the games. I was not able to get up to the one in Everett, but I saw the one in KCI. But yeah, super convenient for us. And seemed like a lot of the Canucks people came down too. It wasn't too hard for them.
Yeah, definitely. So it seemed like everything went well. And so hopefully it all did behind the scenes, and we'll get to see something like this again next year and in the future. Are we starting with the forward groups, RJ, or are we going net out?
Let's go net out.
Okay, I knew you were gonna go with that. So let's talk about the goalies. Two goalies this year at camp: Nick Ikoko and Victor Ostman. Both of them have looked really solid to me, RJ. Right through the rookie camp stuff, all the drills, all the little scrimmages that they do, all of that kind of stuff, and then with each one of them getting a start, I thought both of them have just played fantastic hockey.
I'm with you. I think for Nikkei Coco, it's just a progression of kind of where he got to last year, and he's just continuing on that. Looks really good working with the goalie coaches, and to see some of the continuity there with Colin Zulianello,
Mhm.
who is now the Kraken goalie coach, but of course worked with Coco in CV. But I'll let you talk about the thing you noticed with Coco, when he's not running drills. But Victor Ostman, I've also been really impressed by.
Mhm.
I'd be just really solid. I know he's a lot older than the other guys in this group, 24, almost 25, but just the economy of movement with him, like no wasted motion at all. And as you've said to me yesterday, he just really uses his size well. And so that's been impressive to me. I think his ceiling is probably like a, number 3 kind of goalie for a team. But I think in the Kraken organization, that's all he really needs to be. And we saw him coming in spot duty last season just for that one game. He was solid.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind him playing a game or two for the Kraken if they ever needed it.
Yeah, for a guy who is going to be more positionally focused, right? Positional mindset rather than reactionary, for him to really feel like he's using all of his 6'4" frame, I think is a big deal because we've seen it. We've talked about other goaltenders, you know, there's times like Jake Ottinger. I never think he's as big as he is because he doesn't play like he's as big as he is, right? And I think that that's something that sometimes gets him into trouble. That's not a problem with Victor Usman, right? Like he's gonna play, he's gonna be positionally sound, but he's gonna have good posture. He's gonna be standing up tall. His shoulders are raised, right? Like he is taking up just so much of the net when he's there that it's just hard to get anything by him. And I think that that's a great quality to have. I do think of him as, if he's going to be a little bit more like Philip Grubauer style, right? Where it's going to be about the angles, about that kind of stuff. I think having, I mean, he's got what on Philip Grubauer, 4 inches maybe, right? Like,
Depends on where you list Grubauer,
yeah,
but it definitely helps to have that size
yes,
if you're going to be more reactionary and a little deeper in your net and not,
that
focusing
is
so much on the movement.
right. And that is the one thing though that I would say is he does play exceptionally deep in his net. Like he is on the goal line every time it feels like, right? When he drops in a butterfly, it's at the goal line. Would like to see him maybe get a little bit more aggressive with the shots that are out a little bit further, but that being said, he still stands tall for, breakaway temps, all of that kind of stuff, and he's able to get the job done there. With Coco, yeah, the thing that I really love about him is just how much a student of the game he is. And between every drill, when he is not actively in net, he is talking to one of his goalie coaches the entire time while the other goaltender is taking reps. And I just think that that's a really solid thing. Now, granted, I don't know what they're talking about. Maybe they're talking about the weather, but my guess is they're talking about hockey. They're talking about what he could be doing differently. They're probably looking at what Victor Osman's doing and noticing things there and talking about that. And then Coco, internalizing that, maybe even talking with the goaltending coach about how he can work those things into his game. But I just think it's such a positive thing when you see a player like that in between each and every rep talking to his coaches, wanting to be better. What did you notice there? What can I do differently this next time? What's this other guy doing that I can add to my game? I just think that those are the players that go on to have really long and successful careers because they are taking it that maybe that little bit extra seriously. They're not relying just on their physical gifts. They are actually there putting in the work, and they're putting in the work more than most people put in the work, right? Like lots of guys put in the work, they're putting in that extra, whatever you want to call it, 1 or 2% or 10% difference, right? And I think it makes the difference in the long run. And I think him being this kind of player is partly why he was able to come over to North America and be so successful right away with the Firebirds last season.
Right. And it's those kind of habits too. I mean, the player I think of, the goalie I think of most when I think of that sort of thing is Joey Daccord. Of
Mhm.
course, father being a goalie coach, just the work that he puts in, the attention to detail. But you see that with Nike Coco too. And once you pointed that out to me, I couldn't unsee it every single time. And especially talking to the new Firebirds goalie coach too, who's going to be working with all season. Love to see those habits from him. And I'm sure that growth is going to continue for him. This year too, I think it's going to be a little more steady of a situation since the Kraken have Matt Murray as that third goalie.
Mhm.
I think if there's going to be a goalie that's called up, if they need somebody, if there's an injury, whatever, you just know that's going to be Murray. And I think Coco, it's just going to be his net in CV. He knows that going in and knows exactly what's going to be asked of him.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to the season that he can potentially go and have. And unfortunately for Victor Osman, who looks very good, probably gonna have to spend a lot of time in KC.
Yeah, probably. Unfortunately, being what 5th on the organizational
Yeah.
depth chart, but man, I could see him just dominate down there.
Oh yeah, it's not going to be fair for those poor ECHL shooters. That's for sure. Looking over at the D core, RJ, I mean the defensive core as a whole is just kind of a really interesting thing for the Kraken because you have a lot of prospects. You have a lot of prospects that have had good junior careers, but they've been looking for that one person to maybe kind of separate themselves out of that pack, and I think that they finally have that player in Blake Fiddler. And I know I'm not going to go in order on the roster here. I'm going to jump ahead to Blake Fiddler because Blake Fiddler, for me, from the prospect showcases this past weekend, was my player of the weekend. He was the prospect that impressed me the most. And it's the first time that I've seen a defensive prospect for the Kraken since Riker Evans really coming in. And Riker Evans was even like an overager when everything started. That I've looked at and I've gone, oh, this guy's going to be a really rock solid top 4 plus NHL defenseman, and it's probably only going to be in like 2 years' time because he's just that good.
And he's just so comfortable right away, too. You normally don't see a defenseman that young so comfortable in these spots, especially with the puck walking the blue line. I know you told me about joining the rush, how naturally he's willing to do that. And then you see the frame too. Oh, I'm just surprised that he fell into the second round still.
Yeah,
Because
skating.
normally with a frame like that, and of course he needs to fill it out, but like who doesn't at
Yeah.
that age? They all look like that. But you can see the type of frame, the type of body that he's going to have with those puck skills and with the pedigree of his father being an NHLer.
Mhm.
A guy like that normally does not fall to the second round.
Yeah, there was concerns around his skating, and I will say during some of the drill work, and I talked about this back in July actually when they did that, post draft. I always forget what it's called. What's the official term for the July camp? There's like a prospect
Um,
showcase or
it's Dev Camp.
Dev Camp, yes, thank you. I don't know why that's so hard for me to remember. But I talked about it back then too, right? When he came in, going through a lot of the drills and stuff, there are times where I see why certain teams would maybe have been concerned with his scouting, particularly at skating, particularly when he's skating backwards and going through the transition of forward to backwards skating. It can be a little messy. He loses a lot of momentum when he's making that transition. It's not always the cleanest, and it allows the gap to of the incoming attacker. They're able to close that gap pretty fast on him, and so that's something. But as we've talked about so many times before, right? As we'll talk about with Yanni Newman later on, skating can be coached, right? What you can't coach is his understanding of when to pinch up in the offensive zone, when to get involved in the offensive zone, when to play the man versus playing the zone in the defensive zone, when to go and try to throw an old school hip check along the boards like he tried yesterday in that second prospect game, right? You can't teach those kinds of intangibles and those kinds of things that he has to his game. And I think that all of those things so far and away outweigh the skating concerns, especially when those skating concerns can be worked on. And just like with Dev Camp, the skating concerns are maybe there and he doesn't then jump off the page, so to speak, when you're looking at him during drills during rookie camp. But the moment the two games started, and he had maybe a rough first period in the first game, but he recovered well after that, and he just played so solid and fantastic, was by far and away the best defenseman through those two prospect games. And I think that's really where his game shines. And I just think his understanding of the offensive zone, his puck skills, the way he can dance around, forwards coming up, trying to attack him at the blue line, the way he can join rushes, the way that he can go deep in the offensive zone, the way he can find guys for backdoor passes from the point. All of that stuff is just going to play, and it's just something that it looks so NHL ready already. And then you factor that in with somebody who's 6'4", who utilizes his reach defensively, right? We saw that a lot yesterday. Him being aggressive, defending the blue line, holding that stick out, really leaning, right? Bending at more than a 90-degree angle, get that stick all the way out there and poke check it away from an incoming Canucks attacker. Having those defensive skills, having that size, and then obviously all the great offensive instincts, he is going to be a very good player for the Seattle Kraken for a very long time.
Yeah, and they need someone like that on the blue line in their prospect pool. That really is, as you mentioned, the thing that they're kind of missing. I checked again just to see what he's listed at weight wise. He's still listed at 209. which is a
Well,
lot, and yet he looks so slight at 209.
I was going to say the Kraken rookie camp roster has him at 218. Do you think that's the weight that he weighed in day one at rookie camp?
Yeah, probably, or at like the media thing. I don't know when they put those rosters out, but yeah, the 209 is just from like Hockey DB, so that's probably out of date.
Yeah.
So yeah, he probably is up to like 218 now, and he still looks so slight. There's still a lot of room
He
to
could add
put
more.
weight on.
Yeah, he could definitely add more, and things like that. So yeah, he'll get bigger. He'll add another 10 to 15 pounds probably. He'll probably play close to 230 or around 230 at 6'4", and he's just gonna be a beast out there. And to be able to dance around with the puck and make those plays at that size, it is insane that he fell to them in the second round. And again, good on Jason Botterill and the Kraken staff for trading up to get him in the second round, right? Like they did not just wait for him to fall all the way down. They did trade up a couple spots. They went out there and they got him, and I think that was a great ad. Okay, so looking at the rest of the defensive prospects, I mean, I think arguably my biggest training camp storyline with the organization is not even with the Kraken, RJ. It is going to be with the Coachella Valley blue line situation and who is going to fit in where, because they have very few veterans returning to the Firebirds roster, but they are adding a bunch of young players, or potentially a bunch of young players. Some of these guys have overage eligibility to potentially go back to their junior teams. We'll see who ends up doing that. But the group I'm talking about is Lucas Dragicevic, Caden Hamill, Tyson Jugmouth, and Caden Price. And I want to kind of talk about those guys. We can kind of just go in alphabetical order here because that's the way the roster has them here. Dragicevic kind of had a down year last year for me. Came into camp, and I'm still kind of waiting to see it. He's kind of struggled a little bit in camp, and I kind of keep waiting for that offense that we know he has to really show itself, RJ. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen that.
And that's what made him so special at early rookie camps, dev camps, is that he would always show some pop offensively. And the creativity was really something to see, especially in the 4-on-4, 3-on-3 type of formats that you sometimes have in those camps. And I just haven't seen it the last couple of years. I know you turned to me at dev camp this past year and just said, the coach has got him. The coach has got to him. And I understand he needed to be better and more reliable defensively. Like that needed to be coached into his game for sure. And I think to an extent it has, but it feels like he's lost a lot of the offensive upside as a result. And that's kind of the thing that made him special. I still don't think he's good enough defensively to justify, not having the offense there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so we'll see if, being in Coachella Valley, if they're able to work with him there and coach him up. But I don't think he's going to be in the starting lineup there, right? Like I don't think that he's kind of good enough to outplay some of these other players if he ends up making that roster, and if several of these guys make that roster. The next one to talk about is Caden Hamill. Caden Hamill's another one. Doesn't stand out a lot to me during the drills sessions, RJ, right? He always seems a little bit slower than a lot of the other guys. It's not that his skating's bad, it just kind of lacks that power and push and overall speed for me. But then you see him in a game situation and he just plays so physical. And what I love about him is he's always using his offhand to not hold on to the opposing player, but just keep it on them, right? Like his glove is always like on their back, something like that. And he just kind of tethers himself to them in a way that is legal, but it just allows him to constantly be pressuring them, right? Like he's always just punching them essentially in the back while they've got the puck and they're trying to do something. He's always pestering them. And I always love that about watching him with the Silver Tips and then now with the Kraken. I just think that that's something that it kind of helps make up for his overall lack of speed, is that he's slowing the other player down, right? Just by physically engaging with them. And then whenever he can kind of get them along the boards, he just mauls them.
Yeah. And I think with Hamill, the hockey sense is pretty high. The hockey IQ is good. And I think it kind of helps make up for, maybe the lack of inherent skill in his game, which is, again, something as a 5th round pick. You're looking for players. And I know, Dylan, you've always said it's all about hockey sense. It's all about hockey IQ. And, looking at his NHL potential, it's probably is like a number 7 at the ceiling or someone like that who can rotate in. But if you can be smart about the way you play, be physical on your opponents and just be positionally sound, it's kind of all a coach can ask for.
Yeah, we'll see if he gets into any preseason games. I think long term with him, the speed of the NHL is probably just going to be too much for him. But I do think that he has a long career as an AHL defenseman ahead of him for sure. Next one up in that group is Tyson Jugmouth. Again, Mr. Hero Ball coming into camp. He has all the skill, right? He can show up in the drills and look fantastic. He can show up in the prospect showcases and also look fantastic at times. Sounded like Coach Laxdal was really kind of trying to work with him on systems. I think that's why he got in both games, was really trying to just give him more reps with the systems. I think that during the two games that we saw from him, I saw the least amount of hero ball mindset that I've seen in a long time from Tyson Jug now. So I think that that was helping. But again, I worry about him finding the balance between utilizing his skill set in the offensive zone, utilizing the instincts that he wants to have with playing to the system, with understanding what needs to happen in the defensive zone. And I do think that while he was a better overall player, it did take away some of what makes him special. Not to the extent that like kind of Dragosivic has found himself in, but I do think that like that's going to be the balancing act for him moving forward, is learning when it's okay to go out there and utilize the skills that you have and play the game that you want to play versus when not to. And we'll see over the course of this year if he's able to do that in Coachella Valley.
Yeah, and that's going to be the most telling thing, I think, because it's tough going. It's his first pro season, right? He's been in junior up until now, and so going into a new league with a bunch of better players that you're playing against, are you going to have the confidence to do the kind of things that really make your game special? We'll see. I mean, we'll just have to see how that goes for him, and it's tough because you do have to balance that. If you do make defensive mistakes, or if you are too risky, in an area, that could mean a coach benching you. But I hope he just keeps that confidence, because he does have that kind of special offensive upside, at least to be a difference maker at the AHL level in a year or two. He just needs to make sure to keep that mentally.
Yeah, and I do think he has the inside track on playing time in Coachella Valley of this group, especially on the left side. There's really only one veteran AHL defender on the Firebirds roster on the left side, so it's very possible that we'll see him and a Caden Price say work in there for the Firebirds this upcoming season. But I think he's going to be the guy that they're going to give those opportunities to first. But I think it's going to really come down to him really working with the coaching staff, learning the lessons, and playing the way that they want him to be playing if he's going to hold on to that spot. And then lastly, Caden Price, who I just mentioned, is the last one of this group. Caden Price, I think, really came in and fixed a lot of the concerns I had with him from Dev Camp in July, where he just didn't really stand out a ton to me. I still think, I talked with other media members. Nobody really knows what happened once he was traded from Kelowna to Lethbridge this last season in the Western League. All the scoring dried up. He just didn't really look himself. This weekend in the prospect games, he looked himself to me, which is a complete, well-rounded defender. I think he's been working on his defense a lot, and he's gotten a lot better back there. And I look at him and I see, again, somebody who I still think has NHL upside, but certainly long-term, very, great top four AHL defenseman there.
Yeah, I think he's kind of settled into that type of projection, I guess.
Yeah.
Anybody else on this blue line? Just quick notes, or anyone stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, Ty Nelson and Viliota Vainen are going to go back to the Firebirds, kind of continue what they do. We know what they did. I hope Ty Nelson's able to continue to build off of what he did last year with them. I think he's fantastic there. Fibiger will go back to junior. Don't always see a ton from him. I'm kind of waiting to see something pop as far as him. Really wish Bernier was healthy enough to play this year, but unfortunately was not. And then Will Reynolds, who was the third round pick this past season. I like the way he plays in drills and everything there. He has good skill set, obviously has good size and length, but sometimes the games, I think, get a little too quick for him.
Yeah, a little outmatched in those couple games, I would say. And then, by the way, Alexi Bernier just recovering from an ACL injury. That's what's keeping him out.
Yeah, but I'm very high on him still, and can't wait to see him again once he's healthy and good to go. All right, on to the forward group now, RJ. And I mean, we should probably start with the two players that have looked better than everybody else in camp. And honestly, they should be looking better than everybody else in camp. But that's, of course, Berkeley Catton and Yanni Newman. I'll let you pick which one we talk about first, but it's just been great to see the two guys that I think there was probably realistically the most hype around, especially when it comes to who could carry over and join the Seattle Kraken this season, show up and look as advertised.
Exactly. And you know what? I think we should start with Yanni Newman. I feel like it'd be more natural to start with Berkeley Catton. I think the potential's higher there. He was a higher draft pick, but I think right now, just watching the two of them, I think Yanni Newman's been the better player.
Yeah, I agree. Yanni Newman shouldn't even be out there. Like, it's kind of ridiculous that he has to be out there. He was dominating all of the drills from like the moment they started. He dominated the drills, and what I loved about it was he dominated the drills by looking like he wasn't even trying. Right? It almost looked like he was moving slower than everybody else, even though he was going just as fast, right? He was just so matter of fact about everything. He just carried himself like a pro, carried himself like somebody who didn't need to prove anything, while at the same time, I think only not scoring on any like drills like 3 times all week. Like every time he shot the puck, it went in.
And we were watching for it too. We were just waiting for him to not score on a shot, and it was very rare that it happened.
Yeah, it was exceptionally rare. He just looks so fantastic. The way he's utilizing his body. Obviously, the shot is fantastic. His understanding of the game and of the systems is just more advanced, which makes sense given he played so much of last year with the Firebirds. He knew the systems that Coach Laxdal wanted them to be doing, and he knew the way that Coach Laxdal and his staff were going to run a practice. And I think that's why he looked so comfortable and he didn't have that kind of extra effort blah 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 stuff, show off stuff that everybody else has at camp. The big thing though for me is how much his skating has improved. Talked about this. I've mentioned it on the Discord and on social media. But he, I think, is now officially an average NHL skater. I think his skating has gotten to NHL average level ability, which going back years now that we've been following him, that's all I've said. If he could just get there, he's going to be a rock solid NHL player because his shot is going to be well above average in the National Hockey League. Probably be the best shot on whatever team he's on for the rest of his career. But I just think that the skating was always so detrimental to the rest of his game. But he's really put in so much work. And he's gotten it to this place where I think that he's going to be able to hang at the NHL level. Again, he's not going to be the fastest guy out there. He's not going to be the most agile guy out there, but he's going to be able to get the job done. And when you have a shot like his and the instincts for the open areas on the ice that he has, that's really all he needs to have.
It's something the Kraken really need to add to their forward group. It's something they just don't have, somebody with a shot like that. And so, really, I think the conversation with Yanni Newman kind of goes beyond rookie camp. There's no
Mhm.
meaningful conversation with him in rookie camp. It's just, is he good enough that the Kraken are going to have no choice but to have him on the opening night roster? And I think we'll find out more about that through the preseason games and how he looks against NHLers and whatnot. But I'm inclined to say yes.
Yeah, I think so too. Again, build your power play around him now. Like there's no reason not to. He is your best power play piece already if you're the Seattle Kraken. Like you have nobody better that has a better one-timer, that has a better natural wrist shot, anything like that. Just do it already. Like there's no reason not to in my mind.
I mean, in a year or two, one of your power play units is very likely going to be built around him anyway.
Right.
Get started on it.
Yeah, you give him normal third line, even fourth line, 5-on-5 minutes, but then leave him out there for like a minute and a half on the power play and just let him cook. Like I think there is going to be a point in time where with his shot, the Kraken are going to build the power play unit around him the way in the past we've seen power plays built around like a Steven Stamkos one timer or an Ovechkin one timer or something like that. Whenever you have somebody who has a one timer that's just that elite, you just kind of build your power play around it. I think the Kraken are going to have to do that at some point, and just looking at the rest of the roster, I don't know why you wouldn't do it as soon as possible. So that's the stuff on Yanni Newman. Good on him. He's kicking butt and taking names. Berkeley Catton's also doing that. RJ Berkeley Catton coming in, probably got the most hype of any Kraken prospect going into this camp, and I think he's lived up to it so far.
Yeah, and he has more than anybody else made me regret not being able to go out to that game in Everett because unfortunately he didn't play at the game in KCI, so I did get the chance to see him in a game setting. And for me, at least in the early days, he didn't really separate himself in the drills and that sort of thing, just
Mhm.
watching him at rookie camp, and I was getting a little concerned. But oh boy, did I hear from everybody how he was far and away the best player on the ice up in Everett. So I kind of want you to talk about that a little more.
Yeah, I mean it was definitely him and Yanni Newman. You could maybe split hairs there, but it's just the speed at which he can think the game is just so much greater than anybody else. Certainly in a prospect setting, right? And this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. The dude's putting up like a billion points in junior. We know that he has that hockey awareness, that hockey sense that is just next level. But that's really what I think kind of separates him from everybody else because he can think the game so much faster. He's able to play faster, right? Like he is a fast skater, all of that kind of stuff. He's never going to be one of the fastest guys out there, but he's above average when it comes to speed. But he's able to fully utilize that above average speed. There's lots of prospects out there. There's other guys in this Kraken group, right? That can be very fast skaters, but they're not able to necessarily think the game as fast as they can move. So then when the puck's on their stick, they slow down. Berkeley Catton doesn't have to slow down when the puck's on his stick, and that's what allows him to really separate himself from everybody else in these situations, and what's going to allow him to be a playmaker at the NHL level too, because that's what it takes at the NHL level, is for you to be playing puck on your stick or not at the same pace, right? You'd be able to go out there and just always contribute at fast a speed as possible, and him having that is going to be big. I look at what he did in that game, worked with his line mates really well, attack and transition very strong. Again, just that pace of play was just too much for anybody on the Vancouver side to kind of deal with. My one area of concern is maybe sometimes in the offensive zone when he doesn't have the puck, is just he'll, finding ways to get open or to go get the puck, right? Finding out what his natural spot's going to be in the cycle. I think that's something that if he hangs around with the Kraken for a full season, or even if it's just for the 9 games, I think that that's going to be like kind of a real key thing for him, is learning how to be an NHL centerman when you don't have the puck on your stick. Because right now he wants to be a playmaker. He wants the puck on his stick, and frankly, the puck should be on his stick. But there's going to be plenty of times in the National Hockey League where your team's going to be in the offensive zone and the puck's not going to be on your stick. Where should you be, right? Where are you going to then best contribute for your overall group? And kind of similar to like Matty Beniers, he doesn't play to the interior a lot when the puck's not on his stick. He's not going to go and post himself up net front. I'm not sure that he necessarily should anyway, but it's just going to be like kind of where he goes. And I'm saying this not to detract anything from where he's at in camp, but just to kind of talk about he's at this like next stage of camp and where a lot of these prospects are, where it has nothing to do with like what he can like actively do with the puck the way a lot of these other guys are, right? He's at that next level where it's okay, 5-on-5 situation, National Hockey League, here's how you can make that extra little bit of difference for your team. And I think that that's a good thing that he's already there. I think that him being in that spot means that he is definitely ready for NHL camp later this week and for the preseason, and I think for some time in the National Hockey League where he can learn those lessons.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that David Goyette talked about with us a little bit yesterday. And the transition from junior to pro is like in junior, you're the guy, the puck's on your stick all the time. And I think Derek Laxdal also said, look, these junior coaches will play guys for like 35, 40 minutes a game sometimes if they're a star. It's a totally different role that you have to accept when you're breaking into the pros, whether that's the AHL or the NHL. And I think that's one of the things Berkeley Catton's going to have to deal with as he takes that next step. And I think kind of like Yanni Newman in a slightly different way, but the conversation with Berkeley Catton goes past rookie camp.
Yeah.
If he's playing against prospects, he's like 100 to 150 point guy and will always be. And that's been known about him even before the NHL draft. How does it translate to the NHL level? And that's still what we're waiting to see, and what we're going to find out pretty darn soon as training camp ramps up and we get to see preseason games. I mean, a couple more details on Catton, because we did get the chance to talk to him also. Weight wise, he says he's up to just under 180 pounds now compared to, I think, 172 when he was drafted. So not a huge increase, but it's something, he's working on. He still does look on the smaller side. There's no doubt about that, but really, again, it's not size that's going to be the reason for his success in the NHL. It's the hockey IQ, it's the playmaking, it's the skill. But one thing I did like also is he spent the summer skating with NHLers, including Connor Zary, Kevin Korchinski, who people will remember from juniors up here, and Braden Schneider. So he was working with a big group of guys who are all kind of trying to break into the NHL, and a few that already have broken into the NHL. So I do like seeing that from him.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to benefit him greatly, kind of going in, already being used to the speed that the game's going to be played at through training camp, preseason games, and into the NHL season. I think that that's going to be big for him, and I think he's ready for it. And yeah, this roster has him at 179, so I think this roster is their most current weight, so that 218 for Blake Fiddler is probably pretty current. Looking at the rest of the forward group, I mean, there's so many ways that we can kind of go about this. Do we go by age seniority, draft seniority here, RJ? Do we just go alphabetical down the list?
I don't know. There's so many ways. Let's just go alphabetical down the list.
Okay.
I feel like we could try and split hairs with seniority draft wise or age wise or whatever,
Yes.
but let's just go down the list.
Then we've got Jagger Firkus here next up, and I mean it's another year, RJ, another year of is it Jagger or Yager?
It seems like it's becoming Yager. If you listen to the coaches and the PA announcer and all this stuff, I don't understand it because it was always Jagger to me. And I've spoken with his mom and his aunt, very, very nice people, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always Jagger. So, or well, Jagger with,
Yeah.
with the accent. But yeah, I don't get it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but I would probably take his mom, the woman who named him's Q, probably when it comes to
Yeah.
that, just personally. But Ferguson came in. He's another one where this is not his first go around with rookie camp. He's been here now a couple seasons. He played last year with the Firebirds, and I do think again being somebody who has that familiarity with Coach Laxdal's systems and kind of how he's going to run camp, for me, he was the next most comfortable looking player through everything behind Yanni Newman. And again, that kind of makes sense. I think, as always, the size concerns are there. I think those size concerns are still real. I've talked about it in the past. The time where I will kind of come off my I think he's too small to play in the National Hockey League is when he can survive a preseason game taking a hit, a kind of benign hit, and not hitting the deck, right? Not going all the way down. I think he's kind of starting to get there. I think he has learned some of the things that he's going to need to learn as a smaller player. We've always talked about this, right? Going back to watching Kailer Yamamoto with the Seattle Kraken, talking about how when you have that lower center of gravity, it can be an advantage for you if you understand how to leverage it in those physical moments, and you how to build up your strength in the lower body to be able to do that. And I do think he's getting there. He's more competitive in board battle situations. He's more competitive in open ice physical situations. There was a moment where he took a big hit in Everett and he went down. It was a shoulder on shoulder kind of from the side, and he went down hard. Like I'm not gonna lie, I don't know that other prospects would have hit the ice, and if they did hit the ice, I don't know that it would have been so like destructive looking. But it was a hard hit, and it wasn't. It was very much like a square, full on check. He did not kind of drop from the more benign stuff this weekend, and so that to me is a big positive. But otherwise, he's letting, his hockey sense and his nose for the net play, right? He's always there and involved. Whenever the team scores a goal and he's on the ice, even if he's not the one scoring or assisting on it, he's generally net front, right? He's creating chaos somewhere. He's pulled a defender out of position by his presence because he just always knows where to be on the ice. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him maybe hopefully take a next step at the AHL this upcoming season. Maybe add some more weight again. It seems like these weights are current weights. He's listed at 5'10", 153. That is just so small, right? It's just so small. But I think that his hockey sense should allow him to have an increased role with Coachella Valley this upcoming season, especially because he is going to have a leg up on a lot of guys having already played a year down there. And I think that that's going to be a good thing for him.
Yeah, I mean, with the net front presence, I just keep thinking of Kyler Yamamoto. There's so much Kyler Yamamoto in his
Yeah.
game. And of course, though, Yamamoto, 5'9", 178, still, quite a bit.
Is that 25 pounds heavier?
Yeah, than Jagger Firkus. So I think he still has a little ways to go as far as just putting on muscle, putting on weight, and you just be able to survive at the pro level a little bit more. One thing that we did talk about a little bit, just the two of us, was his shot. And how it's very good. I mean, that's one of his big weapons, right? If he's going to make it to the NHL level, it's going to be because he's a scorer, and he's just good enough to be, a top 6 type scorer. I don't know. It's still seeing it next to Yanni Newman or next to some of the other shots, even like a Carson Rakoff. It still feels kind of that tier below.
Yeah.
Personally.
I agree.
That's another thing that I want to see how that plays another year at the AHL level.
Yeah, I agree. Next up is Oscar Fisker Molgaard. I've always been a huge fan of his. I think that he just plays such a complete game. I mean, if you were at the game yesterday, the game at KCI, or this will definitely be something I probably include in the prospect chat later this month, just the way that him and Blake Fiddler were working together whenever they were on the ice. Fiddler would jump up in the offensive zone, join a rush. It made sense for him to do that. Fisker Molgaard he picks it up, pulls himself back, plays defense, right? And then he'll play defense all the way back, which he had to do a couple times in each game, where he's just basically playing defenseman. He's skating backwards, he's handling it, he understands what to do in those situations, and I just think it goes to show how complete a game it is that he plays. I thought his line in the game in Everett did a great job of just driving possession. It wasn't flashy, they didn't score a lot, but boy, they just knew how to get the puck out of the defensive zone into the offensive zone and really work it around there. And I think that that's, realistically always what he was going to be, right? Back to his draft year, I had a first round grade on him, but it was always he's going to be a third or fourth centerman in the National Hockey League. He's not going to be a top scoring guy. He's not going to be in your top six, but he's going to be there, and he's going to be able to play there for 15 years, and he'll be able to be a big part of a cup contender one day because he just plays the game the right way and so responsibly. And I've seen nothing to take me off of believing that. And I know, talking to several other members of the media, they're right there with me as far as him being an NHLer potentially even sooner rather than later, and him being just this great bottom six person for a very long career in the National Hockey League.
And it's consistency too. I mean, he's just so consistently that way. He just looks like a pro already, and it's all the time. I was talking with a fan before the scrimmage the game at KCI yesterday, and I was going over some of the players that I like and were worth watching, and I got to Mulgard, and I was like, well, okay, look, I like him, but he's almost not even worth watching because you know exactly what you're going to get. And he looks like a pro already, and it's not flashy, but he's going to do his thing and be rock solid. So don't even bother watching him, because that's just who he is and what he's going to be. And it's good, but just don't even bother.
Yeah. And you could tell too that he's played 3 years of professional hockey too, going into this too, right? Like, just the little things that he does are just so fascinating to see in games like this, because he isn't out there trying to prove himself. He's out there to help his team win, right? And it's kind of like a different mindset that he maybe has versus some other young guys in the settings like this. But love what he's doing. Can't wait to see him with the Firebirds this year. I think that's going to be really, really cool to see. Probably needs to add a little bit of weight. Listed at 168, 6 foot. Probably needs to add a little weight before he can join the NHL squad. That, and the Kraken need to find space at center for him anyway, which is probably not likely to happen anytime soon. But really looking forward to him being in North America this year. David Goyette, next one up. He's another one, been around for a couple seasons now. RJ spent last year in Coachella Valley, really kind of going through a transitional process as a player from being the guy for Sudbury back in junior to being a guy for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. He's really fully made that transition over to winger. I like that for him. I do think he's going to be able to pick up the nuances of the professional game and be a good AHLer long term, just because he was a great penalty killer and stuff like that in junior. But I think that's kind of where things seem to stand with him, is that he's going to probably settle in as like a middle six winger for Coachella Valley long term.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where he's tracking to, at age 21, middle six winger, AHL level. And yeah, that's kind of where he's at.
Yeah, but like, really good performances, plays great. Like the way he uses his body, even not having size. Like
yeah. No, he's got the hockey IQ and I think the mental makeup too, talking to him to be a pro hockey player for a long time.
Yeah. Justin Janicki, I'm always impressed with him. Like, I always notice him. I'm watching games. I never think about him going into the game, right? I'm always focused. I'm like, I'm going to watch these other guys. And then I see a player flash and I'm like, who's 68? Who is this? And then it's him. And I'm like, oh, that was a good play. Just a really, really smart, solid, all-around player, kind of responsible. See him as maybe one of those guys where he kind of plays in the middle to bottom six at the AHL level, but then is one of those guys that you could call up when you need a middle to bottom six winger at the NHL level too, just because he understands assignments, he understands how to play within a system, and then to make positive impacts there away from the puck is really impressive with him.
Yeah, although not this season probably, because one thing worth noting is the Kraken did let his rights expire. So he's on an AHL deal with the Firebirds, but he's not under contract with the Kraken right now.
Yeah, it's going to be something he'll have to earn, but he strikes me as one of those guys that when you play a system that, like, kind of solidly and you're able to make those contributions, you tend to get chances that other guys maybe don't, despite not having numbers at the AHL level. Andre Loshko, next one up. Again, kind of, I'm always impressed with him whenever I watch him. Junior numbers were always like solid, but never otherworldly the way some other guys have. But he's a guy that really utilizes his size. I really like the way he utilizes his size. I like the way he plays net front. Really intrigued to see him make the transition and the jump and get more playing time in Coachella Valley this upcoming season. I think that's going to be really good for him. And I think that's where we're going to kind of be able to see long term where he can settle within the organization.
Yeah, I think he's built well to handle the AHL game. I mean, one AHL game under his belt and he scored 2 goals. So, I don't think he'll be able to continue that pace, but interested to see what he'll do over a full season.
I was gonna say he's always been a net front player, and that's not always rewarded in the OHL, just because there's so much speed and flash and all that kind of stuff. But it is rewarded as you enter the professional ranks, and so that's why I'm really excited to see him this upcoming season. Jacob Melanson up next, and I've been in the past pretty down on Melanson, usually mostly because of the discipline side of things. Right, he was always somebody those first couple seasons where he would just take some really boneheaded penalties that he did not need to be taking and hurt his team, right? Quite frankly, I felt like he hurt his team on a fairly regular basis. All credit to him. He has done a great job of walking that stuff back, and he's just really turned into a player that, as Coach Laxdal said, right? He's a killer, right? Just look at him, and he goes out there. But he's a great power forward prospect for the Kraken, and one of the things I like about the Kraken organization when we're seeing them in these situations through rookie camp, prospect scrimmages, and prospect showcases against other NHL teams is the fact that they have players like a Melanson, like a Nathan Villeneuve, where they are kind of power forward, a little bit nasty, play a little gritty, right? But have the skill to then also hang and play on a line with a Jake O'Brien or a Berkeley Catton or an Oscar Fisker Morgard, right? And I just think that his game is really upped, and I kind of want to see him with the Kraken at some point now, which is something I never thought I would say. But he's just done such a good job of rounding out his game, learning professional lessons down at the AHL level. I heard from Bob Condor yesterday with the Kraken that he just fell in love, right, and with John Hayden's game and wanted to become John Hayden, and I think he's doing a great job of becoming somebody like that.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're on board with Melanson now because I always kind of saw the vision, and I agree with you. He did kind of hurt his team at times in the past, not figuring out the discipline, but he knows how to pick his spots now. He has
Yes.
figured that out. He's always had what is it that Jeff Merrick always likes to say? It's better to try and tame a tiger than paint stripes on a kitty
Yeah.
cat.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the direction here that the Kraken went with Melanson and seems to be working. I want to see him play a bunch of games with the Kraken this year. Look, if this is going to be a transition season and you need some grit, some edge on the fourth line, I know you do have
You have
the
John
original
Hayden.
John Hayden.
Yeah.
You do have him, but look, if things do start to go south and it's clear that okay, this is not a playoff team this year, and I think that's probably where it's headed at some point. Give Melanson that run as a
Mhm.
fourth liner and see if he can be a fixture to bring that grit and bring that size and everything. That not size, the physicality.
Yeah.
He's 22. I think he's ready for it.
Hmm. Yeah, I do too. Julius Mietinen, unfortunately, out with an upper body injury, so we were not able to see him at camp this year, and that's a real bummer because I'm just so happy with how he played this past season, and I love watching him play. So hopefully he's able to heal up and get back out there for the Silver Tips soon. Logan Morrison, next one up. Logan Morrison making that transition kind of from AHL winger to AHL centerman, and I think that he's doing a good job with that. I think it's going to completely limit his where he could ever have a future with the Kraken, just because they have so many centers. Like there's probably just never going to be an opening on the NHL roster for him there. But I look at him and I see somebody that, again, as an undrafted free agent kind of guy situation, him being able to become a number one center at the AHL level, I think that's just such a huge win. It's such a great story. All credit to the Coachella Valley staff and everything that they've done with him over two coaching staffs now, and I think he's kind of settling into that too, as settling in as a veteran player. He's going to be leading a group of players that are going to be new to that league. Like, you can kind of get that sense from talking with him now that he's kind of changing mindsets from the young guy trying to grind it out and make space for himself on a roster into, okay, now I'm the guy and I'm going to have all these young guys that I'm going to kind of have to shepherd through their first professional season. And I think that's really cool to see that transformation happen over the last couple seasons here.
Yeah, we got to see it up close. And I think, yeah, when you turn 23, which I get is still very young, of course, but still at that level, right? You kind of know more or less what you are and what your role is going to be. It seems like he's fully embraced that, and he's been a leader among these players.
Yeah, so really happy for him and can't wait to see him continue doing what he does in Coachella Valley. Jake O'Brien is the next one up here. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Newman is in
yeah.
the way, but
Yeah, Newman
we
was
already
in the
talked
way.
about him.
Jake O'Brien's next one up here. First overall pick, not first overall, first round pick from this past year's draft. Looked like Jake O'Brien to me, RJ, right? He thinks the game at such an advanced level, such a dynamic passer. I think he would drop dead if he ever passed in the direction he was looking. Like every pass is a no look pass, and yet it's always right to where I will say the space on the ice he wants to pass the puck to, because it's not always to another player on the team. He really strikes me. I kind of figured it out watching him through these two games and through rookie camp, RJ. He thinks the game diagonally. I don't think he thinks of the game north south or east west in the offensive zone. I think he thinks about it diagonally, and as though there's just a big X through the offensive zone, and those are the passing lanes. And you know what? He'll probably find a lot of success with that because defenses aren't used to taking away those passing lanes. However, he's going to need the rest of the guys on the ice to understand that he thinks that way, because that seemed like a lot of the problem through both of the prospect games was just he was making passes, and I totally understand what he's doing, and he is passing to big open spaces in the offensive zone that if somebody was there, they would be able to have just a grade A opportunity to make something happen with. The problem is, it, honestly, close to half the time, nobody was there. And so I think he's just one of those players, RJ, that he's going to need a team that understands how he plays around him. He's just going to need that time to build that chemistry. Wouldn't surprise me if he's one of those guys where he has wingers, he's a top six centerman, but then he has wingers on his wing that maybe don't seem like they should be top six wingers, but it's just because they understand the way that he's thinking and they're going to be in those spots when he makes a no look behind the back, spinorama pass in the corner, and he throws it into the middle of the slot. Great place to be, but just nobody's there.
Yeah, exactly. I think he thinks the game at just a different level. Also, in these prospect scrimmage type of things or in drills like this, like you mentioned at the top of the episode, these players don't play with each other all year. They go back to junior. They're
Mm-hmm.
playing against some of these guys. They're playing with other teammates. In a few days, you don't really have the time to get on that same page mentally. And I have no doubt that some of these prospects could if given a full season. But in the few days you have, it really doesn't show off the best of Jake O'Brien and the way that he thinks the game, but you can see what he's going for. With a trained eye, you can see exactly what he's trying to do. The whole think the game diagonally thing is really great. I love the turns of phrase you used on this,
Yeah.
and some of those you mentioned to me in the last couple days, and I was hoping you used them. That's fantastic. I feel like it would be a really great fit because when I think of thinks the game diagonally in the offensive zone, for whatever reason, I always think of the Peter Laviolette New York Rangers the last couple
Mm-hmm.
years, before he got fired. But like how that team played, they totally think the game diagonally in the
Yeah.
offensive zone, and it led to some of the coolest, best looking plays I can remember over the last few years. I would love to see the Kraken one day behind Jake O'Brien runs that sort of thing in the ozone.
Yeah. Otherwise, Jake O'Brien, when you're talking about more of a well-rounded game, we knew when he was drafted, defense is not his strong suit. That has played out. There's a couple times where his line has been, stuck in the defensive zone and had struggles getting out. And then you picked up yesterday one of the goals that the Canucks were able to score. There was a wide open guy on the rush coming in, third man on the rush, and that was O'Brien's guy, and he just kind of held up when back checking, and that allowed him to get that separation and score.
Yeah, he had the initial skate on the back check trying to catch him, and then as soon as the other guy got another stride on him, he kind of gave up on it, and that pretty much directly led to the Canucks goal. So the little things to kind of work on.
Yeah, definitely. Next up, Carson Rakoff. RJ, did you notice him this time? Because this has been our complaint with him through the last couple of rookie camps and dev camps and stuff is great junior player, tons of great numbers. Notice him in junior, but then he'd come to these kind of practices and we just kind of forget that he was there. Did you notice him this week?
I noticed him more than I had in the past. Still not a lot, considering the level of player that he is and what he was able to do in junior. I noticed him 3 times. So
It's good.
that's something.
That
That's
is
something.
good.
I noticed him once in one of the drills. the last day of like rookie camp before the games, where he had one of the best shots, individual shots I have seen through all of rookie camp. Just going near side, bar down. There's like a puck sized area of space, and he hit it on the goalie. I think it was Coco in net. So that was great. And then in the scrimmage, the prospects showcase game, I keep forgetting what to call all these
Yeah.
things. The one at KCI, he made a couple nice passes in the offensive zone. They weren't able to really connect, but I like what he was thinking, and I like the playmaking instincts there from him, which isn't normally what I think of when I think of Carson Rakoff, but I like the vision from him in the ozone. So those were the 3 times I noticed him.
Yeah, I noticed him a little bit more this time through both games. Noticed him in the Everett game. I think the transition to Coachella Valley is going to be so interesting for him because he's probably going to have to be on the wing potentially. Either that or he's going to center the fourth line, which will be very different from anything that he's had to do before. And so I'm very kind of intrigued to see as he goes through the process of their training camp a little bit later on where Coach Laxdal kind of wants to put him because he's skilled enough to be out there. That is for sure. He has a great shot. He understands the way the game should be played. But I'm really kind of intrigued to see what path the organization wants to put him on for his professional career because he's kind of been just a do everything junior player, right? Very much kind of what Coach Laxdal was saying, where a junior team will focus on one guy, they have him do everything. He ends up playing a billion minutes. That has been Carson Rakoff. I'm very intrigued to see kind of where the organization sees him and what developmental path they want to put him on. And I think we're going to get that answer in the next 2 or 3 months as Coachella Valley gets underway and once they start getting games under their belt. But I still think that he has a lot of potential. It's just going to be how much of his game is going to be able to translate to a pro style system and overall game. And because otherwise he has the size 6'3", 206, he has the shot, he has the hockey sense, he's got the defense, right? Like he has it all. It's just seeing it come together in a different setting than the OHL. And that's just going to be the big test for him.
Yep. The tools are all there.
Yep. Leighton Road, I thought he played, really solid. For me, he's just one of those really good kind of AHL winger grinder guys, really smart, good head on his shoulders. I like the speed that he plays the game with, all of that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, seemed to get injured yesterday, left in the first period, did not come back. Don't have an update on that. But hopefully it's nothing too serious and he'll be ready to go when Coachella Valley starts their camp soon.
Yeah, good depth guy for CV. Hopefully he's all right.
Yep. And then we have Edward Chalet, RJ, and going through the drills, I wasn't noticing him a lot, or I'd watch him specifically, and I wasn't seeing anything that jumped off the page. Then the game started, and you know what? I was like, okay, I see why he was a first rounder again, right? He knows where to be in the offensive zone. He's very good attacking through the neutral zone. I love the way that he can kind of help lead a rush from the wing through the neutral zone. He's another guy kind of has a nose for the net, kind of knows where to be. I think you could see the CV on him, right? Like as far as like their system and all of that kind of stuff, understanding to go to the net front a little bit more, just like with Jagger Firkus, right? Last year, making that transition to CV, and now he plays at the net front a lot more. I could see that with Chalet. It's just going to be one of those things where Chalet, he's not going to have the defense. He's not going to have a lot of those other intangibles, the size, the physicality that's going to make you say, okay, we can make room for him in the bottom six, right? Like he's never going to be a player that you're going to want to put on a fourth line. So for him, he's going to need that skill, his shot, his offensive awareness to be good enough to be an NHL top six player. And I think he's just right on the verge of, he has flashes of that, but he's just not able to put it together consistently right now. And so hopefully another year in Coachella Valley. Again, this would be like normally when a North American player would be entering Coachella Valley. He's got a leg up on those guys. Hopefully he's able to display that consistently over the course of an AHL season. If he does, then I think we start talking about him with the Kraken and moving on from there.
Exactly. It's all about that consistency. And that's something that we didn't exactly see last year in CV, but it's always tough the first year adjusting to pro, from juniors and everything. So I think you're just going to need to see that consistency, see the production, because, 6 goals in 51 games. And I'm sure he wasn't playing, top 6 minutes necessarily, but
Yeah.
you need to see a little bit more than that. But it's this year. This is such a crucial year for him, because if he doesn't show more than that, as you said to me while he was doing some of the drills, the possibility is there that you could go back and look at that draft class, and every year there's a couple gaps where players didn't end up playing an NHL game, and you see that, he could unfortunately be one of those guys.
Yeah. So again, too early to write him off or anything like that, but you want to see him take that next step forward. Nathan Villeneuve, RJ. He's always been the player, right, that I've been really excited about, in the same vein of everybody being excited about Jacob Melanson, because I felt like he had the Melanson game, but maybe with a little bit more skill and then better discipline as far as not taking the penalties. I still see it all with him, right? Like, he's just a fun guy to talk to. He's a fun guy to be around, and he just plays a fun style of game out there on the ice.
Exactly. And I can't wait to see how it translates to CV too. I mean, it's a different type of thing trying to, I guess, intimidate junior players who are maybe a little younger than you or your own
I
age
was gonna say he's got
versus.
another year of junior eligibility still.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, sorry. I looked at him playing 5 games with CV, last year, and was thinking that might be the path. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it
it's
feels
interesting. I
crazy.
mean,
He was drafted in 2024. Like, it doesn't feel like he's been with the organization for way
it does,
longer.
right? Maybe it's because we also associate him with Melanson, who's been there
Maybe,
from
yeah.
the very first draft. I don't know, but you're right. He is still junior eligible. So he's only 19.
I
I know.
know. It's
I think of
crazy.
him as older than he is,
Yeah,
and I
I
think a
do
lot of
too.
that is down to how he plays, also, and just the
Hmm.
maturity too. Talking to him,
Yeah.
he's very confident in who he is and what he's all about.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's got a long career as a bottom six winger for an NHL organization, bringing those intangibles, bringing physicality, while also being able to pot like 10, maybe off chance 15 goals a season for a squad. Like, I still think he has a higher skill ceiling than Melanson has. Melanson probably beats him out on the edge and the like energizing a line and a team kind of factor, but I think Villeneuve has a little bit higher skill ceiling
Yeah,
if
I'd
I
agree
had
with
to
that. Yeah,
distinguish them from each other there. And then Ryan Winterton here at the bottom of the alphabetical list. Again, kind of similar for me to Logan Morrison, just a guy who he's an AHLer basically at this point, and he's settling into being a veteran there, and upcoming this season, a leader of young players.
yeah, exactly. I think the comparison with Morrison is really apt. I think you kind of got the shot at the NHL level. Skill isn't fully there, for the production. I think other guys maybe bring a little bit more edge in the bottom six, but he could be a very useful AHL player. Did produced well with the Firebirds, and I think that's just kind of where he's going to be.
Yeah, and he has defensive chops. He understands two-way game. He's a great penalty killer with Coachella Valley. And so you'd think like maybe that translates to a bottom six role in the NHL, but I think lacking the physicality of like the style of a Melanson or a Villeneuve or that kind of thing, and lacking the speed of say like a Brandon Tanev. I just don't know that there's really a room for him, right? Somebody who's just kind of he can be a little physical, but it's more in like a shutdown way. But he doesn't have that high end skill or speed combo to kind of separate himself.
He's a well-rounded player, but the other way you could look at it is that he doesn't really have one trait that sets
Yeah,
him apart that would be the reason he's up.
exactly. Exactly. And then lastly, wasn't on the list, but technically the player we should have talked about first, and that's Avon RJ, the new addition to everything. I mean, I'll let you start because I feel like I always started with all of these guys, but it seems like a good addition to the group.
Yeah, I mean, as you should. I mean, you are the prospects guy. I trust your opinion on these things a lot more than my own. But yeah, as far as Avon, like I think he's going to be a really good depth option for the Firebirds. It probably fits what they want to do and what that lineup's going to be better than a Tucker Robertson. And so I think it just watching him, it kind of makes sense
Mhm.
why the Kraken made that trade. And I think he fits well with some of the other prospects that are going to be at CV, and also he actually kind of impressed me. I don't know. I wasn't expecting him, given the numbers like last season or last 2 seasons, really, like 60 something games, 17 or 18 points. I wasn't expecting him to stand out from a skill perspective, but he did a couple times. I was like, oh, yeah, there he is. I noticed him.
Him and Justin Janicki were kind of like the same guy for me, where it was I would notice them do something maybe away from the puck, right? Like they're doing something, and I'm like, wow, that kid's thinking like kind of that next step ahead, right? And then I'd be like, oh, it's Avon. Like yeah, because I'd be like, who's was his number 16? I'd be like, who's that? And then I'd be like, oh, it's Avon. Okay, interesting. So I think he's going to be a really good piece for Coachella Valley this year. I think he's going to be able to slot in higher in the lineup than Tucker Robertson was going to be able to, just because Robertson was probably going to be like borderline 4C for them. Whereas I think Avon's going to be able to be like a middle six winger and have a little bit more opportunity. And I think he's going to be a guy that playing that style of game, he's going to be able then to help a lot of the young players that are making that transition from junior to Coachella Valley either showcase themselves because he's going to be able to create a little bit of extra space out there for him if he's on their line, or just present, the way a professional player should play, right? Each and every day through practices, through games, all of that kind of stuff. I just think he'd be a good player for these young guys to just watch what the little things he's doing and then go out there and try to emulate that.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm getting that trade. I understand it. Yeah, Tucker Robertson on this list, but of course traded away
Not
in
there.
that deal for Avon.
Yeah. But overall, RJ, as we kind of wrap up our discussion on this and wrap up the podcast, I think every year when we do this, I'm just kind of always amazed at how many like legit prospects the Seattle Kraken have, right? Like going through this process every year, you understand why the Kraken are always at the top of, or up in the top group of NHL teams when it comes to overall prospect pool. I think it's sometimes easy to forget that when we think of, well, they haven't produced that star player, right? Like there isn't always that player at the top of the group that has that, the catch-all national name kind of thing. But when you look at the overall depth, the amount of these guys that could play in the National Hockey League, RJ, and the fact that, like I said earlier, it's not one style of player, but multiple
I was
different
going to bring that
types
up
of player, it's
if you
so
didn't.
impressive. Yeah, it's so impressive. I mean, I'll let you talk about it because that just speaks to the organization and really the scouting department and everything that they do.
Right. And when you talk about a prospect pool in general, too, and you mentioned this yesterday, and I thought that was a really good insight that a lot of teams will kind of just look for the same type of guy. They have a type that they're after
Mhm.
and that they're looking for. And you see lots of different prospects of that type kind of all together. But I think it helps also just for the development of the group as a whole. When you do have a more well-rounded group of different types of players, you've got playmakers, you've got physical guys like the Villanova and Milan said, you've got pests, you've got solid defensive centers like a Fisker Molgard. You've got high-end skill guys like a Berkeley Catton at forward. You have some puck-moving defensemen like a Dragocevic and a Jugmouth, but you have just a rock-solid defensive guy like a Viliota Vinen. You have a little bit of everything in this prospect pool, and I do like seeing that because it's easy to, I think, take that for granted when if you've only followed the Kraken and their prospects and everything, but that's not the case on every team.
Mhm.
It really isn't.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. And it's one of those things that I think we'll start seeing it more next year just because the Kraken have a lot of expiring contracts. A lot of these guys will have matured to the point where you could start talking about them becoming NHL players, particularly all the many, many names. I mean, so many of the names we talked about today, obviously we talked about everybody, but so many of the ones that we talk about really potentially being, members of the Kraken and making differences for them are not first round picks, right? These are all second, third, and later kind of guys. We're going to start hitting the point where it makes sense for guys drafted in that range to start making it to the National Hockey League. I think we're going to really see that next year. But what it means is that as you're putting together a roster, you're going to have wherever you end up having an opening after you go through trades and free agency, wherever you have an opening, you're going to have a player that fits whatever that opening happens to be on an ELC. And you're just going to be able to plug them in, and they're going to be able to be that fourth line center that can help drive possession, or that physical winger that can go out there and help boost morale and give a spark to the audience when it's 10 minutes into the second period and the game is kind of settled into that groove, right? You're going to have one of those guys, and they're all going to be young, and they're all going to be on ELCs. And the fact that you can do that is just going to open up the roster building for the front office so much, RJ.
Yeah, lots of cap space, lots of flexibility. Even as it is, there's lots of cap space coming up next year. And with the cap going up as much as it is, I mean, they can just spend on whatever star player they could hope to attract.
Yes.
Cap space, like with this prospect pool, cap space is not going to be the issue.
Exactly. And also having a well-versed, having the variety that you have back here for the prospect pool also means when you're talking to other teams, and at both of these games, by the way, tons of scouts from different NHL organizations, a long line of them at both of these games. When you're talking to other teams, if those other teams happen to just value one or two certain types of players that little bit extra, you probably have a prospect that fits their mold, right? Or fits their need. And so by having this variety that they have, by being able to go out and identify players of different, styles and play, it just gives them that much more flexibility when going into trade negotiations with somebody, because I have to think there's a guy in here for every need that an organization could want when they want a prospect back, other than if you're trying to trade for Connor McDavid and you need to send a Macklin Celebrini type guy the other way.
Yeah, I mean that's the exception, of course. But on any, other types of deals that you'll actually
any
see
realistic
usually,
trade that the Kraken would be making, or any NHL team for that matter would be making, the Kraken should have somebody for it.
exactly, and that can help to grease the wheels on a lot of trades that might put you over another team. We have yet to see them ever do that or take advantage of that.
Yeah.
But I think it's something we could see in the future.
And I think that a lot of these guys, because again, so many of them have been later draft picks, or at least non-first rounders, they're getting to the point where they're maturing enough that it makes sense, right? Like all of a sudden they're, if you're an acquiring team of a prospect, generally you don't want to acquire a prospect that has like a 3-year timetable to them, because historically you're not going to be GM by the time that guy gets there.
Yep. And at that point, you might as well just get a draft pick who you can actually choose who it's going to be. But you want someone who's going to arrive sooner than that. And the Kraken are starting to have a lot of people that fit that category.
Yeah, definitely. So really excited about the future for the Seattle Kraken because of all these guys. Had a ton of fun being able to cover rookie camp this past week and these 2 games, and also see as many of you as we were able to see at all of these things, as various dates were either open to the public or open to season ticket holders, things like that. It was just a lot of fun, or just everybody that I was able to see up in Everett. It was great to see how many people made the trip up there for that game and how excited everybody was for that. So great seeing everybody as always for all of these.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's been one of the big highlights for me, and looking forward to more of it with training camp too. There's a lot of sessions that are, I think we talked about at the end of last podcast about the sessions that are open to the public, because there are a lot of them on training camp from the 18th all the way through the 30th. So if you have the chance to go and check out one of those, would highly recommend it. It's great to see the players up close in a way you really can't during a game. So definitely check those out. And if you see us, come say hi, because we always love talking to you guys.
Yep, definitely. Looking ahead to training camp starting here soon, RJ. We'll be excited to be able to see all the Kraken guys back out there on the ice and be able to talk to them and everything. We're over on time, but do you have like one storyline that you're really looking forward to? We'll really kind of highlight and dive deep into all of them next week, I think, as training camp's kind of getting underway. But is there one that you want to leave everybody on as we close out the podcast?
Well, I'll do the one because I have my whole list, because I was ready for it if we needed to talk about it at the end, if we needed time. But I'll do the one that's related to what we just talked about, and that is Yanni Newman and Berkeley Catton. I think those are the 2 guys who have a legit chance to make the opening night roster and to be on this team potentially all season. I'm done with rookie camp. I don't want to see any more of those guys out there against the prospects. I know what they can do against them. It's not fair. They shouldn't be out there. How do they stack up against the NHL roster and players who have been in the league for a long time? I want to see them go against those guys, see how they stack up, see if they're ready. And I want to see them go out there, impress me, impress everyone. I know they've got the skill to do it. And I just can't wait.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait to see it as well. I'm also looking forward to another year of having the offices of Rico Tessador sponsoring this podcast. Love having him around as always, and while we hope none of you ever need his services, the odds say that at some point someone out there will be involved in an accident, whether on the road, at work, or anywhere in between. And when you are, we hope you call Rico at 425-778-9800 or visit his website ricotessendor.com to schedule a free consultation. He's won millions of dollars for his clients and helped thousands of people in the greater Seattle area, and as a fellow member of the ECH community, we know he'll help you too. And with that, everybody, we will see you all at training camp.
Hey everyone, before we go, we just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/Emerald City Hockey, especially our Terror of the Deep patrons.
Thank you so much for making all this possible. We really appreciate your support.